you will get more than $1 million. This is the answer if you have $1,000 a month consistently invested for 30 years. Not true some crypto moonshot, not true flipping properties, just boring, consistent investing in the S&P 500 index. But here's the thing. Most people get the math wrong. They either overestimate the returns, ignore inflation, or forget to account for how life actually gets in the way. So today, I want to run through the real numbers, conservative numbers, and show you exactly what $1,000 a month invested over 30 years actually looks like in Singapore. If you're new here, my name is Chris, a former chartered accountant, now full-time content creator, and I run a Telegram group of close to 23,000 members. So if you are interested in personal finance and discussion, join us for free Telegram right here. And I'm probably someone who spends way too much time thinking about how money actually compounds. But let me present a case study with assumptions, and I already uploaded this tool which is available for download. So you can just download it for free using the link here. Alright, let's get into it. First, let's set the parameters because we are just assuming $1,000 a month invested consistently. No skipping months, no panic selling, okay? The vehicle is an S&P 500 index fund. For Singaporeans, that could be something like SPYL or the cheaper alternative BOO. That is, if you are investing through a regulated Singapore broker like Mumu or Longbridge, you can access this directly because they have access to US markets. But that's just very surface level ETF. If you're using something more advanced like interactive brokers, then you can access more tax advantage ETFs like CSPX or SPYL. All these I covered in my best S&P 500 ETF video lah, so you can check it out. But here is the return assumption, because this is the part where most YouTube videos get wrong. A lot of videos based internationally will show you 10%, 12%, or even 15% annualized return for S&P 500. And yes, the S&P 500 has historically returned around 10% per year in nominal terms over the last century. But we need to talk about real returns after inflation and foreign currency impact, because we are Singaporeans, we are not Americans, okay? We have something known as foreign currency and also inflation to factor in. Historically, after adjusting for inflation, S&P 500's real return has been closer to 7% to 8% per year. For this video, let's be conservative. I'm just going to use 7% as the base case. It is realistic, it is historically grounded, and it forces us to stay honest. I'll also show you what happens at 10% nominal return, just so you can see the difference, because that gap matters a lot over 30 years. Now let's run the calculation. At 7% annual return, which is rather conservative and inflation adjusted, the total amount you will invest over 30 years results to $360,000. The ending portfolio value is approximately $1.2 million. And you look at your gains from compounding alone is roughly $860K. Remember, you only put in $360,000. The market did the rest of the work by compounding. And if we tune out the return at 10% annual return, which is the historical nominal average, the total amount invested is still the same at $360,000, but the ending portfolio value is approximately $2.3 million. You look at your gains, it's roughly around 1.9 million. Okay, that sounds like a very big number, right? But here's the important nuance. The 2.3 million at 10% is in nominal terms. If we just use an average 2.5% per annum inflation rate, which is this formula here, you'll get the number 2.098, which means that if we divide that 2.3 million by that 2.098, in today's purchasing power, the value is closer to just $1.1 million. And that's essentially half the value, half only, 50%. So in real terms, both scenarios are actually not that far apart in purchasing power, which is why just use 7% instead of 10% as a real return estimate. That is much more straightforward. It will just cut through all the noise, okay? So 7% is a more realistic return. So the key takeaway here is this. The bulk of your wealth does not come from the first 10 years. It comes from the last 10 years. And let me show you using my graph here, my compounding curve. At year 10, after investing $1,000 per month, your portfolio value is roughly 173K at 7% estimated return. Then at year 20, it becomes roughly 520,000. But you see at year 30, it jumps up to 1.22 million. And the jump from year 20 to year 30 is over $700,000. That is the power of compound interest. And the longer you stay in, the more violent the upside gets. And remember, you only put in how much? $360,000, which is an exponential return. Okay, that's why they say compounding is the eighth wonder. Okay, but I want to bring you back to the Singapore context, and let's keep it grounded. It's 1,000 a month, realistic for the average Singaporean. Now, according to the latest SingStat data, the median gross salary income in Singapore is roughly $5,775, and that's including employer CPF contributions and 1/12 of the annual bonus. This one I already done a previous video explaining the stats. So if we exclude the employer CPF 17% and also 1/12 of the bonus, the gross income then becomes around $4,556. So $1,000 a month is roughly 22% of that, which sounds quite aggressive but achievable if you are intentional about it. That means your budget allocation towards your needs, your wants, your savings and investments need to be more intentional towards investing for the future. Now, there are a few Singapore-specific considerations. Number one, CPF is separate, okay? CPF is not an investment. It is a retirement savings account. Whether you are contributing yourself monetarily, plus your employer, plus your voluntary contribution to Medisave account or special account, okay? It is not an investment. It's a retirement savings account. You get 2.5% interest in OA, 4% in SA, MA, and RA. And your first 60,000 gets additional 1% interest below 55. Okay, I'm talking about CPF as an allocation to retirement savings, but it is not an investment, and this is different from what is known as a CPF OA investing. I just want to set the context clear. Now, the next one is SRS, because SRS, which stands for Supplementary Retirement Scheme, that's an important announcement, and that is the retirement age is going to be raised to 64 years old from 1st of July 2026, so you have a few months left. So SRS is essentially a tax deferment scheme where your contributions get tax relief up to 15.3k per year as a Singaporean resident. But remember, your SRS needs to be invested or you will just be earning 0.05% in your pathetic bank account. But we only talk about the good points. What about the bad things that can happen along the way? Let me be very honest about it, especially market crashes. If we look at the past history, the S&P 500 has dropped more than 30% in the years of 2000, 2008, and 2020. And every single time it recovered and went to all-time new highs. But remember, this is only for people who stay invested. So if you panic so at the bottom, or along the way to the bottom, you just lock in and realize the loss. Okay. Number two problem is inconsistency. If you skip 12 months in year 5 just because life happens or something big happens, you have a big ticket expense, you lose the compounding on those contributions for the remaining 25 years. Every $1,000 you skip is not just the $1,000 loss. It is potentially $5,000 to $8,000 at the end of 30 years with all the returns compounded. And number 3, very important, is the fees, because return is not guaranteed, but cost is guaranteed, correct? So a similarly small 1% annual fee on your fund or platform is roughly around $150,000 to $200,000 out of your final portfolio value over 30 years. Which is why when we look at ETFs and funds or unit trusts, we need to look at low cost index funds, and that matters so much. SPYL's expense ratio is 0.0945%, CSPX is 0.07%, and we also have an even lower one, which is SPYL at 0.03%. But all these are nothing compared to actively managed ones, which charge you around at least 1% to 1.5%. Okay, and if you go to financial advisors, professional advisors, they may be charging an annual fee on top of whatever the funds is charging you. Okay, so it works against you. You need to reduce the fees. And finally, let's talk about lifestyle inflation, because most people, when they get a pay raise, when they get a salary bump, they get promoted, they increase the spending every time because they think they deserve it. Okay, the ones who build wealth are the ones who automate their investments before the money hits their spending account. So the right way is actually to increase your investment amount when you get a salary bump. Okay, that means you can scale up the contribution even faster. So we talk about the what and why really. Let's talk about how to really execute this in Singapore. Step 1. Before anything, you need to have a brokerage account, because I can talk about this all day. But if you don't have a brokerage account, you cannot execute. Just use whatever is your favorite, depending on the user interface and beginner friendly, okay? My favorite is Interactive Brokers. And for those of you who think that it's too difficult to use Interactive Brokers, I already made a beginner's guide, so you can just follow step by step. I already do the step for you, so follow in that video. Step 2. Decide on your ETF. favorably a UCITS ETF in S&P 500 like CSPX or SPYL, or a world index like BWRA or ACWD. I'm not trying to give you financial advice. I'm just listing that based on what my video share about education, these are the tickers you can look at. Step 3. Very important, set up a recurring investment, because most platforms allow you to set a standing instruction or reminder. Okay, so you keep the investing automatic. You don't every time try to think you can do it manually, because dollar cost average works best when there's automation. You can set it like the first day of every month, or the midday of every month. Don't try to time the market. Just make sure your RSP is executed. You have enough funds to do it. Okay, and final thing, very important, don't touch that automated RSP or DCA. If you really want to check, maybe you check it on like a weekly, monthly, quarterly, or yearly basis. Okay, you don't go and track every day, because the 30-year plan only works if you let it run and don't matter with it. And the more some people look at it, they see the market crash, then they see the stock price or ETF price fall, then they stop their investment. That is not the way. Okay, you need to hands off and let it run passively. So here is the summary if you forget everything I just mentioned in this video. $1,000 a month for 30 years invested at a conservative 7% real return gives you approximately $1.2 million. And you only contributed $360,000, and compounding did the rest. Okay, in the initial years, you will not see the return so much, because compounding really works significantly towards the end of the period. Okay, the hard part is always the starting, because you don't see the return, then you don't feel shocked. Okay, and then you become inconsistent and you panic when the markets drop like 10%. Okay, remember the best time to start was 20 years ago. The second best time to start is now. Okay, this is a Chinese proverb. I'm going to put a quote here. Okay, so the truth is that you try not to disturb the compounding. All right, so keep it passive, and then you work on your active investments. Like you invest in your job lah, invest in your next pay raise, invest in your next promotion, or your new industry, your new job. Okay, so that's my main sharing. If you found this content useful, can you help me click this IBKR link or just scan the QR code here? You will pay a very small commission to my channel. So I thank you to all those who have clicked. Okay, don't need to sign up anything, or you can just download my free cheat sheet lah, all for free. Then scan the QR code also lah. Okay, so for those of you who still think IBKR very difficult to use, okay, I cannot stand the surface, I'll walk through with you step by step how to set up your automated DCA using IBKR in this beginner guide right here.